Hello and welcome back to the F2 show. I'm your host Fraser Ford, and joining me to look ahead to round 8 of the season, we have Inside F2 writer Lawrence Griffin and F1 Feeder Series podcast host Jim Kimberley. Coming up on the show then, we look ahead to Austria as Formula 2 returns for the first time in 2 years. We reflect on the season so far as we move into the second half of the season. And who will be the champion come the end of the season? We get our panel's predictions. And I can see, maybe a little bit of surprise on their faces because I haven't actually briefed them on that. We are coming straight off the back of Silverstone. We're not going to pretend that we haven't recorded back to back, are we? We're just going to say, we've just recorded the Silverstone review, and we're going straight into
I just love this shirt so much.
Exactly. Yeah, just wanted to wear it all the time. First of all, guys, let's get straight into it. Really, they come thick and fast. Austria, first time back to Austria in a couple of years, and it always produces good racing, doesn't it, Jim?
It does. It's my favourite track by far for a variety of reasons. All the laps
really?
I've virtually driven around, I just love it. And then I've been fortunate enough to visit Red Bull Ring twice, and I haven't done every circuit in the world. It's on my to-do list, but there's no circuit like it in terms of its location. You stand at the top of the hill behind what's really turn 2, but turn 3 they like to call it. And you look down and there's a track there. There's this massive field and the mountain ranges in the back. It's spectacular. It has the undulations. It's a proper circuit as well. It's wide enough to have many cars go through. You've got a downhill braking zone into what's really turn 3, what they call turn 4. Uphill braking zone into what's essentially a hairpin into the real turn 2. And then if you haven't overtaken, you've just got to stay behind the next car for the rest of the lap. They have a half lap. And it's so short that you're back doing it again soon after. So it's just non-stop. There's no room to breathe. And it's just brilliant to watch. So great to see the drivers going back there. Great to see Formula 2 going back there. And unfortunately for anyone who wants a shot at the title, Felipe Drugovich won his first time in a Formula 2 car. So it's not looking good for anyone else, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to come on to that very soon. Lawrence, glad to be going back to Austria and also staying with an old school circuit in that, it's a proper track, isn't it? We've had a few street tracks this season. Had a couple back-to-back in Monaco and Baku, but Silverstone, proper track, and we're staying with the proper tracks in going to Austria.
Yeah, it's nice to still be at a proper track again, and Austria should be brilliantly entertaining. It is one enormous overtaking zone, the entire track. I fail to see how it can serve up anything other than brilliant action. So that's me jinxing it. We've got that out of the way now. So right to Inside F2 if you're unhappy with the action next weekend. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. Like I say, Felipe Drugovich should be strong around this track, but there's just so much opportunity for the grid to be mixed up as well. With a qualifying lap on a track so short, you make one tiny error and you lose the momentum for the next straight and the next straight.
And it could rain.
And it could rain. Who knows?
By the way, you've just said send your complaints to Inside F2. I'm saying send them to Lawrence Griff F1 on Twitter. Nothing to his opinions of Lawrence rather than Inside F2. Obviously, as you say, Felipe Drugovich, he did win it in one of the 4 races we had last time we were here. He said in Silverstone, which I thought was really interesting, getting a points advantage and building a gap was his focus for Silverstone, which he is focused on the championship now, isn't he? We're into the second half of the season, and for me, that was him saying, "Yeah, I'm thinking about the championship now, Jim."
Why wouldn't he? As long as he continues to do what he's doing. We've spoken in the last podcast about the Monaco one-off because it was a one-off because of the unique characteristics of Monaco, which we shouldn't be racing at. But it's great racing like at this track where you can overtake, and I don't think we'd have that same sort of issue because you'd have Drugovich and this MP love affair, and he would just overtake in that sort of case, unless let's just put dry tyres on a wet track or whatever he might want to do. But he's got the championship. He's got one hand on the trophy. I really think that at this point. He's got such a lead, and it's not insurmountable because one ruined qualifying, one crash into the wall, and he starts at the back for 2 races. That could scupper him and eat into that lead, especially if one of the chief rivals, namely Porsche, is right there to do what he did in Barcelona and take 2 wins. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, the championship's alive. But as long as he grabs a couple more wins this year, feature race wins specifically, he's got the championship sorted. So I'm not surprised he's just making sure he needs just to finish the races, because that will give him, well, the closest thing he's going to get to a Formula One World Championship, because let's face it, there's not enough seats for him to join next year. But in terms of his stock and whatever he's looking to do next year, I don't know if it's going to be IndyCar or Formula E or WEC or whatever he's going to go and do. He'll say, I'm a Formula 2 champion. I am just of the ilk of the likes of Leclerc, of Russell, of all these drivers, these great drivers who've won this championship. And he can say, I am one of them. So it's no surprise. Getting that championship will be huge for him.
Do you really think that, Jim, that even if he wins the championship this year, he won't be in Formula One next season?
The big problem you've got is the seats for next year are probably already known internally. There might be some negotiations going on, but all the flirting was done back in February, March, April. And I just don't think even then that anybody was looking at him seriously as somebody who's likely to win the championship. I certainly wasn't, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I do think he's a really good driver. And I was shocked that he wasn't in an academy last year, certainly this year. But on the other hand, you look at it from some regards, and Joe completely comfortably destroyed him last year in the same car. So, it's like, this is his 3rd year. Joe needs to take 3 years as well. But should he go into Formula One? I think the champion should always go into Formula One. And this is me jinxing him, like Lawrence saying as well. I'm not jinxing him to say he's not with the championship. The champion should get into Formula One next year, however they do that. But I just don't see where there's going to be a seat. I really don't. And it's terrible for Formula 2, because that's going to make it 3 champions in recent years not making it to the top, and that's something that needs to be talked about as well. But I don't think I can fix it in this podcast, sadly.
Well, you never know, Jim. You never know. I do think Nick De Vries and Oscar Piastri will agree with you there. 42-point lead, Lawrence. It's a big lead, isn't it? And actually, it's a bigger lead than what we've seen over the last few seasons at the halfway point of the season. How do you think Felipe Drugovich will reflect on the first half of the season? And yeah, I suppose what will his targets be for the second half of the season? Obviously, the championship, but will he be focusing race by race, or will he be thinking about the championship?
Well, yeah, I think he'll be delighted with the season he's had so far, and like you say, he has been focused on the championship. There's been none of this, I'll take it race by race, we'll see how it goes. He's very clear, I'm focused on the championship, and he's got that cold-hearted sort of killer about him that just says, I'm going to get the job done, I'm going to take it. In each race, I'm going to make sure I'm making decisions with the championship in mind. I'm not going to risk anything, because at the end of the day, if he feels like going for a walk in the mountains in Austria and not racing at all, he'll still be the championship leader this time next week. And that's how good his first half of the season has been, that he could go and do that. So he has the ability to think like a championship leader and not take any risk, whilst knowing that if he is in some sort of risky situation side by side with someone and he gets taken off, it's not the end of the world for him yet. So he's in a really good position. Is the pressure going to start to bite towards the end of the season? Could that start to get to him? Who knows? It totally depends on how his sort of mentality, how his psychology is. But I think with his experience, he'll know how to handle that pressure. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him eke out that gap this weekend as opposed to have it cut back. And the only sad part of this entire story is that this performance that he's having this season is perhaps not enough to overturn people's opinions about him before this season started. That he was outraced by Joe last season, that he hasn't quite got that quality for F1. So that would be a sort of damning indictment on Formula 2, really, if he didn't get to Formula 1 next season. But we'll see how it goes. He's not linked to any junior team, but Zhou didn't end up in a seat that was linked with his junior team either, and it can restrict you sometimes. He's got a great position from which to negotiate with anybody he likes. So I'm hopeful for him as much as it seems that it's going to be difficult for him to break into F1. He can only be helping his cause by the way he's performing at the moment.
Yeah, I do worry that not having a Formula 2 champion, as we've seen in previous years, in Formula 1 the following season, kind of tarnishes the reputation of Formula 2 a little bit. So if he does win the championship, I definitely would like to see him in Formula 1 next season. Let's wait and see. But guys, whilst we are obviously now moving into the second half of the season, thought it'd be a nice opportunity to kind of reflect on the season so far. So I've got a few questions lined up for you both. We might have just been speaking about him, but it might well be your answer. But who for you is the driver of the season so far, Jim?
If you don't say Drogovic, it's curious, but I think you've got two questions, haven't you? You've really got who's a driver of the season and why is it Drogovic, and then the second one is who's a driver of the season excluding Drogovic, because he's been phenomenal. He's been so consistent in a sport where we constantly say consistency is key. That he has scored points every single race apart from the odd Monaco one when he comes back and wins a feature race anyway. So it's been exceptional. He's turned it up more than anyone could imagine. Equally, though, me answering the second part of the question I posed myself, Porsche's been just as good. And for all the plaudits I will apply, rightly, to Felipe Drugovich, they've got Porsche, who's 3.5 years his junior. Like, that's huge in that age. If you think about, it's not the same level because you've got footballers playing against this, but if you think about the level of these drivers a few years ago, you've got somebody who's basically a 16-year-old against a 12.5-year-old or whatever the age difference is. And you think if they were playing football, that's a massive difference. If they're in karts, that's a massive difference. And you essentially still got that, although they're starting to both become men and have their own journeys. But Porsche, for his age, is still tremendous, a huge talent. And I don't know what's going to happen to him next year at this point, with Joe doing so bloody well, that we could have the two best drivers in Formula 2 this year not make it into Formula 1 next year. Porsche, if he doesn't win the championship, inadvertently might be good for him because he can win the championship next year if he doesn't do anything else, become a reserve driver at Alfa Romeo or something. But Porsche has been really good as well, and it's easy to forget that he's so young and that he's in his second year compared to Drogovic with 3 years and vastly more experience just in driving because of his age.
Yeah, all really good points. And yeah, I think at this point, you probably could say we were speaking about Felipe Drugovich, obviously moving on to the wet tyres in Monaco. He probably would have won both Barcelona races on the wet tyres if you put him on, wouldn't he? So he's been that good this season. Lawrence, maybe I'll ask the same two questions to you. Rookie of the season so far, and why is it Logan Sargent if we're going down Jim's line of thought?
No, well, I didn't actually pick. No, I did pick Logan Sargent for this one. Yeah, it has to be. It's the consistency. It's the consistency. Excluding Jeddah, he's been in the top 10 in every race, and that's phenomenal from a rookie. Because I think previous years, particularly last year, Piastri, his performance fooled us into thinking that a rookie can just step into an F2 car and can perform consistently against guys that have a couple or 3 years experience, and they can just win races week in, week out. And the rookies at the beginning of the season all really struggled. Dennis Hauger came through as F3 champion going into Prema, which was the same seat that Oscar Piastri won in the previous season, and everyone was expecting him to sort of follow in those footsteps. And I think that has sort of finally allowed people to realise how difficult it is for rookies in this series. And so against that backdrop, Logan Sargent has performed really brilliantly well. And what the likes of a Sargent or Porsche do in the way that they build up and they build momentum in their careers is they start to build a picture of the potential of where they can go in the future. Drogovic, nobody was expecting for him to perform like this. He is performing well, but he is older than the likes of a Porsche or a Sargent. and he has the experience under his belt. Whereas Sargent and Pourchaire, they just seem to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Pourchaire burst onto the scene last year and won in Monaco and showed his pace, and now he's taken another step up and been a consistent title challenger. And Sargent is coming right in there, and now he's a race winner, and now he's third in the championship, and he could be in that battle as well. So he is making a real name for himself as he moves up. So I think it'll be hard to look past him as rookie of the season.
Lots of, I suppose, notable mentions, but maybe the surprise of the season, Awasa, worthy of a mention. I mean, he surprised a lot of people this season.
Yeah, I think Awasa has certainly surprised a lot of people. He surprised a lot of people in Bahrain when he ended up first for a while, overtaking everyone, and with the help of some pit stops, mind. But he's performed really well, and he's looked quick and aggressive. And he had a tricky time of it in Silverstone. He finished second in the sprint race and would have been right up in the feature race were it not for his slow pit stop. So yeah, he's another rookie that's performed really well. He hasn't had much fortune, but he's shown his quality. Drivers don't get into the Red Bull Junior program at such a young age for no reason, and he's shown his quality.
Yeah, really strong season for him so far. This one might be a bit more of a debate, Jim. Team of the season so far.
Yeah, I did have to think about what I'd answer for this, and I think ART coming up with 2 cars and getting rid of their cursed car is massively improving them as a team. Vesti is coincidentally massively improving as a driver this year, and I think a lot of people would have been disappointed with how his championship's been. I don't think he's ever shown the level that Mercedes probably wanted to have from him, but I think he's starting to, as a Matrix, he's starting to believe a little bit right now. He's not going to be Porsche. I don't think he's ever going to beat Porsche this year. It wasn't going to be a Schwartzman Piastri situation. I think Porsche is just that good. I genuinely think that. But Vesti's turned it up a little bit. He's now, well, looking at his points now. So he's the last 2 rounds, he's scored points in both races, which is terrific. That's the sort of consistency which might help him a lot more next year. And then, yeah, Porsche in the other ART, which is doing well, is doing really well, but the second one isn't being cursed like in the way of Lundgaard and all his predecessors in a similar sort of way. So, yeah, I think ART are the team. Novalak did well this weekend. I was just thinking of MP Motorsport, who are obviously doing so well, but they're completely being carried by Drugovich. Novalak did well and overtook a lot, but he's not getting his qualifying as well. So he's as well as he could be doing this season. He's a good driver, but Drugovich is really out driving that car. And I do think ART are probably the best team. I would also say a shout out to Carlin, especially from the Silverstone performance. But for whatever reason, Liam Lawson just seems to have come off the bubble after looking like a real championship contender in the first couple of rounds. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's something to do with Carlin, if that's something to do with Liam, or what it is. But yeah, maybe he's going to go for the reserve Red Bull drive or reserve driver role next year with all the stuff that's happened in recent weeks. That might give him a little bit more belief to push forwards. But Carlin could have taken that. But I think ART have got the clear, solid 2 drivers this year.
Lawrence, agree with that? ART, standout team?
Yeah, they're both drivers performing at that level. I suppose it depends on your criteria of, MPR top of the drivers' standings. They're top of the team standings as well. So you can't really fault them from that perspective. And Novalak looks like he's been making some improvements, and to get that sort of points hold just with one car consistently finishing up that high is still impressive. But yeah, ART, both cars performing well. Carlin, likewise, both new drivers to the team as well. I'm not sure how difficult that makes it when you're trying to work out setups for the cars, that you don't have a driver in there that's been at the team before, that is familiar with what they're working with. And when one of those drivers is a rookie as well, their role in getting Sargent up to speed, to get him familiar with all the procedures and with the setup, that's a really tremendous job they've done as well. So I think definitely right to highlight Carlin in there.
Okay, good stuff. And last one, conscious of time, but highlight of the season. Lawrence, we'll come back to you for that one. Highlight of the season. Is there a standout moment?
I'm going to say Fittipaldi's podium in Imola. That was a chaotic race on a tricky weekend. And that was just a really sort of lovely moment to see after the accident he had in Jeddah last year, and then sharing the podium with Pourchaire, with whom he was involved in that crash. That was a really special moment, and it sort of felt like everything came really well together to lead to that moment. The fact that you had Vips falling off the track, Nissany falling off the track, and Lawson as well, all like the waves parted for him on that day. That was a really enjoyable weekend. We talk about proper circuits. Imola is a proper circuit. There's no doubt about that. And to see through all that drama, such a good story come out of it, that I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, good answer. And Jim, I think you're still with us. I don't know whether it's just my screen that Jim has frozen on, or whether he's having a very, very long drink. I don't know. But Jim, if you are still with us, highlight of the season so far.
Yeah, I'm. It's all from my side. It's going to be still here, by the way. But Barcelona was going to be the easy one. I think we've got the situation with Drugovich doing so well, getting the 2 wins. It's just such a strong accomplishment. But I do think it's not a terrific moment of the season. But I think one of the moments of the season was the culmination of a driver capitulating everything. And this is before what came after. Vips crashing into the castle section, losing the win after screwing up in Imola, screwing up in Spain, and doing this. Like, just a driver completely derail a season. It'd be punching himself, kicking himself, and everything. But I think that was just the shocking moment of the season for me. That was just like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. So it's not a moment of the season in terms of well done, pat on the back, but it's certainly a moment of the season of like I can't believe what I'm watching moment.
Yeah, painful pictures looking at him after, regretting what he'd just done. Okay, before we leave you, let's take a look at the championship standings heading into round 8. Felipe Drugovich is still at the top of the standings at the halfway point of the season, 42 points clear of his closest rival, Théo Pourchaire. Logan Sargent is the highest placed rookie in the field with an impressive 88 points to his name, 8 points clear of Jehan Daruvala. And Liam Lawson and Marcus Armstrong round out the top 6, but there's just 5 points separating Liam Lawson in 5th and Frederick Vesti in 11th in the standings. Very, very close. And the team standings, MP Motorsport top of the standings still, 10 points clear of their closest challengers, ART. Carlin, Prema and High Tech all in an incredibly close battle for 3rd. They'll all be looking for a strong second half of the season. And Virtuosi round out the top 6. And as always, the full standings are available on our website, www.insidef2.com. Okay, that's all we have time for today. My thanks to Lawrence and to Jim for joining us on today's show. If you've enjoyed the show, as always, give it a like, subscribe for more Formula 2 content, and let us know what your thoughts are in the comments section or on social media. Hashtag the F2 show to get involved in the conversation. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.